Welcome, dear learners. This lecture has been developed based on selected references available. It has been divided into the following subtitles, namely Introduction, Historical Significance, Sacred Groves in Ancient Civilizations, Beliefs and Rituals associated with Sacred Groves, Sacred Groves in Indigenous Cultures worldwide, Traditional Practices and Ceremonies connected to these sacred spaces, Sacred Groves and the Natural World, Ecological Importance of Sacred Groves, Biodiversity and Conservation Value. Sacred groves have protect and sustained local ecosystems. Role of sacred groves in contemporary environmental and cultural movements. The discussion. Shall we now go to the topic? Dear learners, as objectives of this lecture, learners will enable to understand the historical importance of sacred groves, to discuss the various informations on sacred groves, to understand the significant role of sacred groves and the connection with every nature. Introduction. The field of religion and ecology may seem an unlikely pairing, but deeper consideration reveals the two have a great deal to contribute to one another and are indeed inextricably linked. Religion recognizes the unity and interdependence of human with nature. Ecological sciences affirm this deep interconnection with the natural world. It is a relatively new field of study that has developed over a period within the last 20 years. Also, it has been more rapid development and garnered a great deal of interest and attention. The field of religion and ecology is dedicated to examining the complex relationship among human beings, their diverse religion and the earth's living systems. In addition, there is ongoing discussion regarding the ethically appropriate relationship between all species and living systems. In this context, we explore the role of sacred groves in the conservation and management of different ecosystem services in history. Sacred groves are small forest areas that are left untouched by the local inhabitants, to be considered by the local village folk deities and are of special spiritual significance to them. Sacred groves were first described by Brandeis in 1857. According to Ferguson 1971, sacred groves are believed to be pre-Vedic in origin. Sacred groves, also known as church forest, fetish forest, and sacred forests are found all over the world, including Ethiopia, Japan, Morocco, India and Ghana. It has been a part of the rich traditional and diverse culture of Indian societies for many generations. Sometimes they are also known as natural museums of giant trees, treasure houses of threatened species, dispensaries of medicinal plants and regulators of watersheds. Next one, the historical significance. Historically, sacred groves have served as spaces for spiritual explorations, cultural expression and ecological conservation. They have been integral to the religious and cultural practices of numerous ancient civilizations and indigenous communities worldwide. Sacred groves play a vital role in preserving biodiversity and promoting ecological balance, as they often function as protect habitats for diverse plant and animal species. Sacred groves have been integral to various civilizations, religious and spiritual practices throughout history. They have served as sacred spaces for worship, prayer and rituals associated with specific deities, spirits or ancestral beings. These groves were portals or connections to the divine realm, where individuals could seek spiritual solace, guidance or enlightenment. Sacred groves played a central role in many ancient societies, cultural traditions and beliefs. They were often associated with mythologies, folklore and ancient stories, serving as places where important cultural ceremonies, festivals and rites of passage took place. These groves were deeply intertwined with the identity, heritage and values of the communities that revered them. Some sacred groves have gained historical significance due to their association with notable events, figures or civilizations. These groves may have witnessed significant historical movements, hosted important gatherings or served as meeting places for influential leaders and thinkers. They can provide valuable insights into the history, culture and social dynamics of the societies that held them sacred. They have often withstood the test of time and have served as symbols of cultural continuity and resilience. Despite social, political and environmental changes, these groves have been preserved and passed down through generations, representing a connection to ancestral traditions, values and knowledge. Sacred groves in ancient civilization. In Mesopotamia, sacred groves were known as Karsak or Kulup trees. They were associated with the goddess Inanna and considered sacred spaces. These groves were believed to be inhabited by divine spirits and served as location for religious rituals and ceremonies. And the ancient Egyptians revered sacred groves which were often dedicated to specific deities such as Hathor, Osiris or Thoth. The goddess Hathor, associated with love, beauty and fertility, was particularly linked to sacred groves. These groves were places of worship where rituals, offerings and dance were performed to honor the gods. The ancient Indus Valley civilization, known for its advanced urban planning, also had sacred groves as part of the religious practices. These groves were associated with fertility and were believed to be inhabited by spirits or deities. They were considered sacred spaces for rituals, meditations and communal gathering, and the sacred groves played a significant role in ancient Greece culture and religion. The most famous sacred groves was the Oracle of Dodna, dedicated to Zeus and the oak trees. It was believed that the rustling leaves of the sacred oak conveyed divine messages. Other sacred groves, such as the one at Nemea, were associated with specific deities and were venues for religious ceremonies and athletic competitions. In ancient Rome, sacred groves were known as Luci or Numera and were considered sacred to religious deities. The sacred grove of Diana at Lake Nemi was particularly renowned. The next one is beliefs and rituals associated with sacred groves. Some sacred groves were believed to possess prophetic or oracular powers. Ancient civilization sought divination or guidance from the groves by interpreting natural signs or sounds, such as the rustling of leaves or the flight patterns of birds. Diviners or priestly figures often facilitated this interaction between individuals and the spiritual realm, and they were central to the celebration of religious festivals, communal gatherings and associated with healing and purification rituals. Individuals seeking physical or spiritual healing would visit groves to engage in cleansing rituals, meditation or seek the assistance of spiritual healers or shamans. The serene and natural environment of the groves was believed to aid in the restoration of health and well-being, and they were often locations for important rites of passage such as initiations, weddings or funerals. These transitional moments in life were marked by specific rituals and ceremonies conducted within groves. There are several well-known ancient sacred groves that hold historical and cultural significance. Here we can see a few examples. Dodna. It was in northwestern Greece and is a renowned oracle site and sacred grove dedicated to Zeus, the king of the gods. The grove consisted of ancient oak trees and it was believed that the rustling leaves of conveyed divine messages and prophecies. Nemi, it also known as the Diana Nemorensis, was a sacred grove near Rome dedicated to the goddesses Diana. Delphi, it was an important religious and cultural center in ancient Greece, renowned for its oracle and sacred grove dedicated to Apollo. The grove was called the sacred precinct of Apollo and was believed to be the dwelling place of the god. Thamasus, it located in Cyprus, was an ancient city with the sacred grove dedicated to the goddesses Aphrodite. The grove was a revered place of worship and played a central role in the cult of Aphrodite. Issujingu, it is one of the most important Jinto shrine in Japan and consists of the inner and outer shrine complexes. In India, sacred groves known as Devara Kadu in Karnataka, Sarna in Chhattisgarh, Devarai in Maharashtra and by various other names in different regions hold great cultural and ecological significance. And we can see a few notable examples of sacred groves in India. Mawphlang Sacred Grove, it is located near Shillong in Meghalaya. This ancient sacred grove is believed to be over 800 years old. It is considered a sacred site by the local Kasi community and is protected by traditional beliefs and customs. The grove is home to a wide range of flora and fauna, including several rare and endemic plant species. Kochapalri Lake Sacred Grove. It is situated near Kochapalri Lake in Sikkim. This sacred grove is revered by the local Lepcha community. The grove is surrounded by lush forest and is believed to be a sanctuary for deities. Attapadi Sacred Groves. It is in the Attapadi region of Kerala. These sacred groves are known as Aripu Vanam in the local tribal language. They are considered sacred by the Irula and Kurumba tribes of the area. The groves are characterized by their rich biodiversity and serve as crucial habitats for endangered and endemic species. Pachmarki Biosphere Reserve in Madhya Pradesh. These groves hold religious and cultural significance for the local indigenous communities including the Gond and Korku tribes. The groves are protected for their ecological importance and act as reservoir of biodiversity. Sarbavaram Sacred Grove. It is located near Kakinada in Andhra Pradesh. The sacred grove is dedicated to Naga Devada, the serpent deity. It is revered by the local community and is considered an important cultural and spiritual site. In Tamil Nadu, important traditions namely Kovil Kadu meaning sacred groves and Sthalavriksha which are sacred trees are protected all over the state. Totally 503 sacred groves have been reported from 32 districts of the states. Each grove is dedicated to local folk deities and spirits, that means Vanadevada, and has folklore associated with either the deity or the grove. Commonly found deities are the Ayyanar, Sasa, Muniyappa Swami, Veeran and goddesses Selliyamman, Kali, Yellai Kali, Yellai Pidari, Sabdaganni, Pechiyamman, Rakachiyamman and Nagadevadai. Among these, Ayyanar is the most worshipped deity. In the western and eastern Ghats, most of the groves were preserved by local communities or tribes. In the plains, the sacred groves are managed either by an individual family or trustees or community or village head. Many of them are maintained by the village communities under hereditary trustees. Local communities have preserved their natural resources by setting a system of rules and taboos. It has very effectively preserved the same resources. Each grove represents an ecosystem by itself, containing as it does various endangered species of trees, shrubs, climbers, animals and birds. The sacred groves are one such example. Sorimuthu Ayyanar Temple is a temple located in the Mundandurai Reserve Forest in a dense forest which is between Babanasam and Karayar Dam in Tamil Nadu. It is located 12 km from Babanasam and 61 km from Tirunelveli district in Tamil Nadu. Its presiding deity is Mahalinga Swami. The temple is under the administration of Singambatti Jamin, who maintains the temple. An estimated 2 lakhs devotees come to Karayar on Adi Amavasai, that is new moon festivals. The devotees would visit this temple from all parts of Tamil Nadu. During festival occasions, people used to build temporary tents to stay in the temple for a few days. And they also used to cook using their own vessels in order to get divine blessings from Lord Ayyanar. Also during festival times, a lot of special buses are operated to this temple and the temple is located amidst full of natural beauty. The temple is situated on the bank of the holy river Thamirabarani, which is much more speciality to this temple. The next one is sacred groves in indigenous cultures worldwide. Many Native American tribes have revered sacred groves as places of spiritual connections and reverence for the natural world. For example, the Iroquois people held the concept of the sacred tree, where specific trees within groves were seen as embodying spiritual power and serving as mediators between humans and the divine. The Aboriginal people of Australia have long held sacred groves called Warrnambool or brick caves. These groves are regarded as the dwelling place of ancestral spirits and are central to Aboriginal spirituality and cultural practices. In Maori culture, sacred groves known as Wakidabu are considered places of spiritual power and significance. These groves are associated with ancestral spirits and hold cultural and historical importance. The groves serve as reminders of the interconnectedness between people, land and the spiritual real. The Ainu people of northern Japan have a strong spiritual connection to nature, including sacred groves called Nusha or Chis. These groves are believed to be inhabited by deities and spirits and are preserved as sacred sites for prayer, offerings and ceremonies. They are crucial in maintaining the Ainu's cultural identity as they are associated with traditional rituals, folklore and the protection of biodiversity. Traditional practices and ceremonies connected to these sacred spaces. Many indigenous cultures perform rituals that involve making offerings to the spirits or deities residing in the sacred groves. These offerings can include food, flowers, herbs or symbolic objects. The act of offering is seen to show respect, express gratitude and seek blessings and guidance from the spiritual real. Sacred groves often serve as spaces for purification rituals and cleansing ceremonies. Individuals may enter the grove to purify themselves physically, emotionally and spiritually. This can involve rituals such as smudging with herbs, bathing in natural water sources or performing specific chants or prayers to remove negativity and restore harmony. Sacred groves are frequently utilized as places for prayer, meditation and contemplation. Individuals or groups may gather in the grove to connect with the divine, seek spiritual insights or engage in silent reflection. The serene and sacred atmosphere of the grove is believed to enhance the connection with higher powers and fosters inner peace, and sacred groves often serve as the central location for important ceremonies and festivals in indigenous cultures. Next one is sacred groves and the natural world. Sacred groves have a profound relationship with the natural world, embodying a deep connection between human beings and the environment. Particularly, the groves have played a crucial role in the conservation of biodiversity. These groves often encompasses diverse ecosystems housing a variety of plant and animal species. By designating these areas as sacred, communities have protected them from human interference such as deforestation or habitat destruction, allowing the natural ecosystems to thrive. This preservation of biodiversity contributes to the overall health and resilience of the surrounding environment. Sacred groves serve as physical manifestation of the spiritual connection between human beings and the natural world. These groves are often considered sacred due to their inherent beauty, serenity and the awe-inspiring presence of nature. The groves become places where individuals can experience a deep sense of spirituality, transcendence and communion with the natural environment. This connection fosters a reverence for nature, emphasizing the interdependence and interconnectedness of all living beings. And sacred groves inspire environmental stewardship and a sense of responsibility towards the earth. The recognition of these groves as sacred spaces underscores the importance of preserving and respecting the natural world. Communities that hold these groves in high regard often take on the role of custodians, ensuring their long-term protection and sustainability. This stewardship extends beyond the groves, themselves and influences attitudes and behaviors towards the broader environment. The next one, ecological importance of sacred groves. Sacred groves often harbor a rich diversity of plant and animal species. These groves have been preserved for centuries or even millennia, allowing for the development of complex and diverse ecosystems. The absence of human disturbance and the protection afforded to these areas have contributed to the survival of rare endemic and threatened species. The groves serve as refuges and genetic reservoirs, preserving biodiversity at the local, sometimes regional levels. It provides essential habitats for a wide range of flora and fauna. The dense vegetation, varied microhabitats and presence of old growth trees create riches and shelter for numerous species. Many plants and animals depended on specific grove ecosystems for their survival, including those that are sensitive to disturbance or require specific conditions for breeding, nesting or foraging. The groves act as crucial habitats within landscapes that may otherwise to be altered or degraded. The leaf litter, decaying organic matter and diverse vegetation in sacred groves contribute to nutrient cycling and soil fertility. The continuous accumulation of organic material and the activities of decomposers and soil organisms enrich the soil, supporting healthy plant growth and contributing to ecosystems productivity. This fertility extends beyond the boundaries of the grooves, benefiting nearby agricultural lands and supporting sustainable farming practices. And the forest can play a role in enhancing climate change resilience. The mature trees in the groves act as carbon sinks, absorbing and storing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. The preservation of these groves and their associated ecosystems helps maintaining landscape connectivity, allowing space to adapt and migrate in response to changing climate conditions. The groves also serve as important references sites for studying and understanding the impacts of climate change on ecosystems. The next one is biodiversity and conservation value. Many traditional conservation practices of indigenous people in many parts of the world, such as the protection of small forest patches by dedicating them to the local deity, also contributed to the conservation and protection of biodiversity. Such forest patches called sacred groves are one tract of virgin forest harboring rich biodiversity protected by the local people based on their indigenous cultural and religious beliefs and taboos. Sacred groves are patches of natural vegetation surveying in the man-modified landscape. The concept of sacred groves is very old and has existed since the time of Rig Veda, when tree worship was quite popular and universal. The concept and beliefs of sacred trees and groves of forest are one of the best practices to conserve natural resources. Sacred groves have significant biodiversity and conservation value due to their unique characteristics and historical preservations. Here we can see some key aspects of their biodiversity and conservation importance. High species diversity. Sacred groves often exhibit high species diversity, both in terms of plant and animal species. These groves are typically undisturbed by human activities and have remained relatively unchanged for generations, allowing for the development of complex and diverse ecological communities. The presence of diverse microhabitats such as varying soil conditions, sunlight levels and moisture gradients further contributes to the abundance of species within the groves. Rare and endemic species. Many sacred groves are home to rare and endemic species, which are species that are unique to a particular region or have limited global distribution. These groves can act as important refuges for such as species, providing a haven where they can thrive. The preservation of sacred groves ensures the survival of these specialized and often vulnerable species that may be threatened by habitat loss or degradation in other parts of their range. Next, sacred groves have protected and sustained local ecosystems. The sacred groves play an important role in ecosystem services such as the clean environment, that is air, soil, and water conservation, flora and fauna conservation, carbon sequestration, temperature control, and conservation of traditional knowledge. Around 1 lakh to 1.5 lakh sacred groves are reported in India. In Tamil Nadu alone, there are over 1,262 sacred groves. Different scientific reports revealed that these sacred groves can support and conserve different flora and fauna. In India, different religions having different traditions, beliefs and rituals are associated with the conservation of biodiversity and forest. Various communities in India follow nature worship based on the premise that all creations of nature must be protected. As a result, sacred groves still possess a great heritage of diverse gene pools of many forest species having socio-religious attachment and possessing medicinal values. Sacred groves have played a crucial role in protecting and sustaining local ecosystems in various ways. Here are some examples. Habitat preservation. Sacred groves act as sanctuaries for numerous plant and animal species, providing undisturbed habitats where they can thrive. The grove often encompass diverse microhabitats including dense vegetation, water bodies and old growth trees which offer shelter, nesting sites and food sources for a wide range of species. Role of sacred groves in contemporary environmental and cultural movements. Sacred groves serve as important focal points for conservation efforts. Their preservation helps safeguard biodiversity, protect endangered species and maintain healthy ecosystems. As biodiversity hotspots, sacred groves provides a refuge for diverse plant and animal species including rare and endemic ones. The recognition of their ecological value contributes to broader conservation initiatives and promotes the importance of preserving natural habitats. The groves have the potential to mitigate the impacts of climate change. The dense vegetation in these groves helps sequester carbon dioxide, reducing greenhouse gas emissions and mitigating climate change. Additionally, their intact ecosystems contribute to climate change resilience by preserving water resources, regulating local climates and providing natural buffers against extreme weather events. Sacred groves serve as living examples of sustainable land use and highlight the importance of nature-based solutions in addressing climate change. Sacred groves are deeply intertwined with indigenous cultures and traditions. Their protection is linked to the recognition of indigenous rights, including the right to practice and preserve traditional customs, rituals and spiritual beliefs. Advocacy for the preservation of sacred groves aligns with broader movements focused on indigenous rights, cultural revitalization and the preservation of traditional knowledge. By supporting sacred groves, contemporary environmental and cultural movements contribute to social justice and indigenous empowerment, and the groves provide opportunities for environmental education and raising awareness about the interconnectedness of nature, culture and spirituality. Educational programs, workshops and guided tours centered around sacred groves foster a deeper understanding of ecological principles, traditional knowledge and sustainable practices. By engaging individuals and communities, these initiatives promote environmental consciousness, respect for cultural diversity and a sense of stewardship towards the natural world. I hope you all must have enjoyed the session and it may have enriched the knowledge on sacred groves in history. Thank you. All the best.